much. I want to tell you how hardworking Pierre Poliver has been over the past almost 7 years now, since I arrived on Parliament Hill 5 short years ago. He has made a huge difference in local issues, but also on setting the national stage. And I think it says a huge amount about him that when the Prime Minister needed a parliamentary secretary, he had a lot of very capable people to choose from, but that he selected Pierre Poliver to be at his side. And that's a great credit to the And whether it's the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, something that Pierre pushed to be in our election platform, and Pierre was instrumental in bringing into law, whether it was work on the drug treatment center funding, where Pierre was dogged with the Minister of Health in securing that funding, or whether it's with the Stranraer Bridge, Pierre fights hard for the P. Carleton. It doesn't take no for an answer. You know, we are going to the polls for the 4th time in just 7 short years, less than 7 years, and this is an unnecessary and unwanted election where we'll waste $400 million, and that's not good for Canada, it's not good for our economy. We came forward with our budget this week, a balanced plan to keep taxes low, a balanced plan to create jobs, and a plan to return Canada to a balanced budget by 2015. A budget that increased healthcare spending by 6%. That'll be a 36% increase in healthcare spending, which is the #1 priority of Canadian families. More support for post-secondary education, innovation, research and development. A plan to continue the economic growth that we've seen. You know, Canada was the last country to be affected by this great worldwide recession. And under the leadership of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, it's the first country roaring back to life. I know Pierre right across Nepean Carleton, myself and Ottawa West Nepean, and members of our team from coast to coast to coast did a lot of consulting, did a lot of listening towards putting together that budget. We asked the opposition parties what they wanted. We recognize we're a minority parliament and we have to reach out. The Liberals had only one single demand: that we raise taxes by $6 billion on our job creators. And that is bad for Canada. Who in their right mind, in the middle of this type of a recession around the world, and as we have a fragile economic recovery take hold outside of in the G7, where we're leading the way, who in their right mind would want to raise taxes by $6 billion? So we went to the Bloc Québécois. What are your ideas? What are your suggestions? They said, we want $5 billion for current and past historical wrongs, sometimes going back to the last century. He said we'd like a professional arena. And before we could answer, Michael Ignatieff says, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a good idea to give hundreds of millions of dollars to a billionaire who employs millionaires. We said no. And we looked to the NDP. Do you have any ideas and suggestions? And they provided a long laundry list of tax increases and new spending. But we listened. We came forward with a plan to support the most vulnerable seniors living in poverty. We came forward to support more money for health care, a plan to attract doctors and nurses to underserviced parts of the country, and so on. Increased funding for research and innovation. But for Jack Layton, it simply wasn't enough. Well, we have an important responsibility to Canadian taxpayers, to Canadian families, to do what is right. So we came forward with that balanced plan. And within 11 minutes of the budget being tabled in the House of Commons, the NDP were already clamoring for an election. And I believe when we saw the coordinated attempt yesterday by Michael Ignatieff and the Liberal-led coalition with the Bloc Québécois and the NDP, it is the first act in a play we don't want to see the conclusion of. Yesterday, Michael Ignatieff was asked, as he was on Thursday, would he support, again, remember this is a man who signed a letter to the Governor General saying he supported a specific coalition proposal, a coalition proposal that would bring the NDP into cabinet and have the Bloc Québécois have the veto. Imagine Gilles Doucette sitting on the front bench of the House of Commons. In the government side, not the opposition side. And Mr. Ignatieff has refused to answer that question. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ignatieff can run from the Canadian media and hide, but he can't run from the Canadian electorate. You know, we've seen this before. When the NDP were in power in Ontario, we used to be a magnet for jobs, investment, and opportunity. And under the NDP and Bob Rae, we became a mismanaged debtor, overgoverned, overregulated, and overtaxed. If you like Bob Rae in Ontario, imagine if he was one of the right-wingers in the cabinet, with Jack Layton as finance minister, and the Bloc Québécois studying national security policy, and the likes of Hedy Fry in charge of our healthcare system. That is indeed frightening. But we have a better way. A way where we can deliver for Canadians. We have a great budget that supports Canadian families, that supports job creation, that supports economic growth, that supports healthcare. We have a great team, but it's not quite big enough. We have two. We have Damien and Eli on the stage. Now imagine Pierre, if I say this to you, imagine sitting in the House of Commons with Eli Saleeby instead of David McGuinty. Sitting right beside Eli would be Damien as part of a majority Conservative government. You know, we mustn't take a single vote for granted. We need your help. We need your support. We need your blood, sweat, tears, a few of your dollars, not just in Nepean Carleton, but around the region. We can't take anything for granted. This is an important election. We need to get every vote. We need to knock on every door, on every street, in every poll, in every riding right across this country. But in this region, we have an amazing group of men and women. And if you look at our team in Ottawa, we have delivered for this community like no government in my lifetime. Pierre Poilievre not only got the federal funding for the Strandherd-Armstrong Bridge, but frankly he carried Dalton McGuinty and the provincial Liberal government kicking and screaming to the table to fund it. We've gotten record investments in public transit infrastructure, record investments in our colleges and university. Every single college and university in Ottawa got funding for their capital campaigns, and that wouldn't have happened without our strong team. And we have worked hard, and we have to work hard for the next 37 days to earn the trust and confidence of the people of Ottawa once again. Thank you so much for your support. Merci beaucoup.